is really the answer to all this this type of baloney.
Kislev, Samech Vav, page Pei Zayin.
Right. Vayinhu dehine ani avai lo shonisi. The Eibusha says, I am Hashem, I have not altered, v'atem b'nei Yisrael lo chilitem, and you, b'nei Yaakov, I think it's actually atem b'nei Yaakov, not b'nei Yisrael, atem b'nei Yaakov lo chilitem, you, so the way we're learning it is in the form of like a question, a rhetorical question on the part of the Novi. It's like he's saying, Ani Hashem lo shonisi, I am the Eibishter and I have not undergone any changes or any alterations whatsoever. We'll see what sort of finish that is. Atem b'nei Yankiv lo chilitem, and you didn't have klois hanefesh, you didn't go out of your kelim completely. Chilisim v'losh kiloyon. Yeah, meaning you should have gone out of your vessels and had what we call expiry of the soul when you understood Ani Hashem lo shonisi. Now that's a pasuk in Malachi Hanovi, chapter Gimel. That's he's the last of the 12 later prophets, Malachi. And the simple title here we meet up with an interesting phenomenon in Tziddik teaching, that Chassidus teaches b'derech almost pshat, a different type of havana in the pasuk to what most of the people who learn the simple pshat of the pasuk understand it. And we have to say, like we see the Alter Rebbe's done similar things with certain pasukim in Tanya. And we have to say that there was a Kabbalah on the part of the great Talmidei Baal Shem Tov, that the Baal Shem Tov had certain ways that he was makabel from Achia, from the Novi that learned with him, Achia Ashileni, from his great teachers, and the great tzaddikim anistorim, that they had certain kabbalas and certain pirushim in certain pesukim, which even though they weren't al derech hapshat, it was a kabbalah biyodam, that is a emes, a pirush, Benegeh to Pnimius Nishmas HaTorah, Nishama the Nishama from the Torah, that's an emes of Pirush. So the pshat in this pasuk, Ani Hashem lo shonisi, if you look it up over there in Rashi and the Sudas David and the other great Meforshim, the Eibusha is saying that if I say something, I don't change my word. Yeah? In other words, Ani Hashem lo shonisi, in Hebrew that means I don't change things around. Yeah? In other words, I haven't, once I've said, then I stick eternally by what I say. V'atem b'nei Yankiv lo chilisem, meaning that you haven't kept what I've said, and you have to realize that you've got, because you're b'nei Yankiv, you have everlasting life, and you won't pass out completely, meaning that if not in this world, in another world, you'll have to face the din v'cheshbon, you'll have to face the moment of judgment with me, and that's what he means, the Novi, by saying that I am the Eibusha, I don't change my words. Lo shonitu, I have not changed what I say, I don't go back on what I said. V'atem b'nei Yankiv lo chilizim, you're not going to die completely, and therefore you're eventually going to have to face up with me, either in the physical or the spiritual world. That's the types what most of the Meforshim learn over there. It's only maybe in the Ebenezer where it's a little bit mashma that he learns something similar to that, but when it comes to the final pshat in the pasuk, it doesn't seem to be similar to that. And he says, Ani Hashem lo shonisi, that I don't change my midois, I don't change my ways of doing things, which is a little bit like we're teaching it. However, here in this Maimah, and in many places in the works of our Rabbeim, they're mafarish the whole pasuk in the way that we're going to learn it now. Pirush, says the Rabbi. What do we mean? Sha'novi matmiya. The Novi is wondering. He's expressing wonder. Sha'ani Hashem lo shonisi, meaning that I am the Eibusha, I have not changed, meaning I have not altered in my very soul. Not that I have not changed what I said or what I wrote, but I have not altered. In other words, Ki'ilu was written Ani Hashem lo yishtonesi. That's what he's saying in Lashon Kodesh. I never changed in myself. But here he says, Ani lo yishtonesi, meaning I didn't change myself, or I never altered anything about myself. V'yeich atem b'nei Yisrael, and how is it that you, or b'nei Yankiv, how is it that you, the Jewish people, loichir lisem, you should have been in a state of expiry of the soul with absolute ardor, at having understood that I am Ani Avoy Elisha Shoniti. In other words, that you should have gone out altogether, and you haven't. And therefore he says, Ani Hashem Loi Shonisi, that's the fact. V'atem b'nei Yaakov Loi Chalisa, he didn't have Kloisa, he didn't have Kloisa Nevi. Now, as I said, that's a wondrous pirush, which is not in the pshat of the pasuk as it's meant over there in the Novi, even in the context of the other pasukim, it doesn't seem to fit in exactly. But nonetheless, in many places in Siddur, that's brought down. That's the pshat that our Rabbeim haven't. It's even brought down in Tanya, in Perikov. The Alter Rebbe says also he wants to say that there was no change prior to the creation compared to after the creation in Elokus by the Eibishter. Then he also quotes that pasuk Ani Hashem Loishi Loisho Nisi without the end of it. He doesn't go into the final part of it over there. So right in Perikov, right in the early part of Tanya, we see already that the Alter brings that kilo, that's an accepted pirush in the pasuk. So I have to say that this is another example of how the Rebbeim had the Kabbalah from the Baal Shem Tov, Ulamayla, that certain psukim could be learned in certain ways. V'hainu, how is that going to be? How is it that you're supposed to go out into a state of absolute usage of your own self, and to just go out completely out of your kelim to the Eibishter? V'hainu, he said, Ki alidei ha'izbonenes b'pchinas ani Hashem loisha nisi. That when alidei, what a yid will be mizbeinen in that whole state, b'pchinas, in the state of Ani Avoy Elisha Nisi. What does that mean? V'ato hu koidem shenivra ha'olam, v'ato hu li'achar shenivra ha'olam, li shum shinui klal uklal. Now you're all familiar with where we say that, aren't you? So here's another striking example of how you guys, every day you have a new davening. I mean, mamish, you daven over, you don't remember from one day to the other what you daven. So it should be, nika, tremendous brand and chayas in your davening. But I mean, people who know the davening more or less by heart, they also have to daven with new chayas and a new brand every day. Somebody doesn't remember from one day to the other, as he for sure has to have a tremendous brand and chayas in his saying. Yeah, but that's brought down. Just give me the siddur. We'll have to show you guys. That's brought down in davening even before Hoidu, even before the korbanos. That we say, Atahu ad shaloi nivra ha'olam, Atahu shenivra ha'olam. Yeah, now the belishum shinui klal, that doesn't appear here. Yeah, because that's only the Rebbe's addition. That Ato ad shaloi nivra, you are the same. Atahu. Just like you were prior to the creation of the world. After the creation of the world, you're the same Atohu. In other words, it's only you. Atohu, like you were prior. Prior there was absolutely nothing. There was only Eibishter on his own. So after the creation of the world, it's the same Hu. The Atohu, the Achas Nivraho Olam. So the Rebbe said, how can that be? How can possibly be that you're the same? B'li shum shinui klal uklal. What that means is the whole creation, all the elements, all the inyanim which were brought about, al pi Torah, we say that these things did come about. Nonetheless, we say that by the Eibishter they don't alter anything. He is in exactly the same state after the creation of the world as he was prior to the creation of the world. B'li shum shinui klal. Everybody got that? So there you see, you got a quotation from the davening. That now you got what to think about when you get to that portion. And so it's well known as a famous little piece from the Alter Rebbe in Likutei Torah in Parsha Shir HaShirim, in a place where the Alter Rebbe brings down over there that this what we say, Atahu Ache Loi Nivro Ha'olam, Atahu Misha Nivro Ha'olam. The Alter Rebbe says that that's a Nuskha Chadosha. He said that's a new, how do you call it, relatively up-to-date nusach in the Torah, an unusual thing for the Alter Rebbe. It's a Nuskha Chadosha, it's an up-to-date thing. And he said that the old nusach that people used to say in the prayer was Atahu Ache Loi Boroso Ha'olam, Atahu Misha Boroso Ha'olam. You are the one prior to your creating the world. You are the one after you're creating the world. And here we see that it's written, what's the difference? The Barossa is, what do you call it, active, and Nivro is passive. So if it doesn't bother anybody particularly, then we can go further. But that's what the Alter Rebbe brings down over there. Right? So what's the difference between active and passive? If I say, Ato Ache Loi Barossa Ha'olam, or I say Ato Ache Loi Nivro Ha'olam, what is the difference? If I say Atahu Chaloi Nivro Ha'olam, then that tends to imply that this came about on its own. Nivro just means it was created. You don't directly relate it to the Eibster having created it. When you say Atahu Chaloi Barosa Ha'olam, then that means that the Eibster he directly was involved in creating the world. But if you say Atahu Chaloi Nivro Ha'olam, it means like Nivro means it just, it was created, or it came about, it was created. So the Alter Rebbe says that nowadays, that the Nuskha Chadato, he said after the Gilu of the Arizal and the other great masters of Pnimis HaTorah, then the Nuskha Chadasha is correct. That's the more correct one, and it overtakes the Nuskha Hayushona, it overtakes the old Nusach. So, I can see that everybody's really verkocht in this whole question. So the Rebbe's got to see about this. And the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach says, what the Alter Rebbe said, this is a new nusach, this is an old nusach, and the new nusach is now the more principal nusach. So the Rebbe said that what the implication of Nivro compared to Boro is that Boro implies that we're applying an active verb to the Eibster, which means that in some way he became involved. He created means that he actually did it, deliberately created, which might imply some form of what you might describe as involvement on the part of the Eibster. But if you say the world just was created, then that implies that he didn't really busy himself with it at all. But this kilo came about, almost as you might say, Mamela kilo, ad shaloi nivro ha'olam. Achas v'chunidos implies that the Eibster didn't create it, but it came about in a way that it doesn't affect him at all. Kilo was nivro. And the Rebbe said that the Alter Rebbe calls that a new nusach. He says you can only understand that if you learn Chassidus Chabad.
That Hashem is constantly.
Yeah, that in other words, Hashem's so withdrawn, and that the whole thing is only a ha'orah and all that. All of that only becomes miskale through the teachings of Chassidus Chabad.
But we also learn that one of the highest names you can call God is Bora. One of the greatest things you can call God is the Creator, the Bora.
Oh. That's another man. The only lashon we have for Yesh Miyayin is Bora. The Ramban says at the beginning of his Pirush Al Torah that the only lashon we have for Yesh Miyayin is Bora. That's him. But going in on the difference between Bora and Nivro.
Nivro is higher than Bora?
Nivro implies that it sort of came about. It came about. It's so non-relating really in any way to the Eibishter's essence that it just it came about. A Berego would just say he created it, you imply that there's some sort of yachas that he in some way showed a certain importance to Bora. Of course the emphasis is who Bora. We mean to say that he created in such a way that doesn't really in any way affect him. That's the period. And the Rebbe says that Nuscha Chadosha is now the Nuscha Amiti Liachre, was Nishkali geworden, Chassidus Chabad, and that's why the old Rebbe writes, so the Biachshav, a Nuscha Chadosha, Hi Haike. Was it Achshav? Was it given Vater? Vater nicht mehr geht. They say that he wasn't good. But the Chassidus, was Megala, that whole union, how you can say that the whole creation really doesn't affect the Klal, and he's not the Klal effect, or in any way nitfas in the union of the believer. And that's the point that the Rebbe is making here. That's exactly what we're saying. That Ato Achel is Loiniro, Ato Mishaniro Ho'ilo, Belishum Shinui Klal U Klal. Now, how can that possibly be? How can there possibly be no Shinui? I mean, there was millions of Oilamos came about when they was created, and they weren't there before. I mean, in fact, what do you mean to say there's no Shinui? Prior to him, he had nothing, as it were. Now he's got all these thousands and millions of Oilamos to look after, as it were. So what do you mean that Ani Hashem Loisha? And it's the same matter. The same Atohu, before the world was created, the same Atohu, B'li Shum Shinui, without any alteration whatsoever. V'hainu means to say that's already a biur. Lafisha klolos ha'ishtaushel hu mibchinas ha'ora bi'alma she'einu noigea klal. He said because the whole ishtaushel of all the elements is only from a ha'ora. It had occurred how do you say ha'ora?
Luminary.
A luminescence. A luminescence. It's only just reflection, luminescence. Bialma, bialma means just any old how. It's just a ha'ora she'einu nogea klal, that it doesn't affect or bear any effect klal. That's what the word einu nogea, has no effect or relevance to that where it comes from. She gave forth that ha'ora. Since only a ha'ora, bi'alm is done, it doesn't really bother him or affect him or in any way add or subtract to him at all, because it's only a ha'ora bi'alm. I mean, all these staushels of all the elements are like that. And I would take the highest elements that you can imagine, go up as high as you can, it's all einu nogea klal. And the truth of the matter is, even before the elements, the union of, even when you get prior to the tzimtzum, it's also only a ha'ora bi'alma. So everything's only a ha'ora bi'alma. If it's a ha'ora bi'alma, then it's not nogea klal or klal to the Eibishter. Which means that how have we answered the problem? We haven't said that the worlds didn't come about. We didn't say they're just not there. Because if we say they're not there, then we get into trouble. So the Torah says, "Bimfurish bereishis bora elikim eisa shamayim ve'eisa ha'ora." The Torah bears witness that the Eibishter did create the worlds, and al pi Torah the worlds exist. Because ochem vei, if you are machal Shabbos, then you get a punishment. Or any other union, which means that the world exists. Otherwise, if the world didn't exist, then you didn't do anything, and not anything can do. Nobody can do anything to you because it's just not there. You're not there, neither is the world. Elamai, we have to say that the world is there, but it's from a ha'ora bi'alma. It's all from such a union, what by the Eibishter, just has no reference whatsoever. Nivroho, it came about from him. He did it, but it's just meaningless to him. In other words, all these millions of worlds and everything, that's just like nothing. It's like like he said over there in Perikof Aleph, Kof Aleph in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says that it's just like one Ishachas Yeah, me adivul. If you could talk, a man could talk for least safe. And he says, one horse. It says, ain't as a co-error. I mean, that's what we're saying, that the world is not there because it's ain't on a get to the Eivishter Klal, even though it is there. The Klolos Aishavus Umibchinas Melech or Malchus. The Klolos of the whole Ishavius is from Malchus, Firas HaMalchus. De Melech Shmoi Nikro Aleihem. He said the whole coming about of all the elements, in other words, backing up this whole argument, and that's the word Vahainu. Yeah, and then we meet up with Diklolos, that's a further connecting statement hanging on the previous one. In other words, how can that be? The Takir, the whole thing is only a ha'orah. How does that work? So we say that because the last of all the spheres in Atzilus from which the world actually begins to come about, and also prior to the Tzimtzum, from what we call Malchus to Ein Seif, prior to the Tzimtzum, everything that is the Moki of Asheris, from which all the elements is what we call kingship, spheres ha-Malchus. And he said, what is the meaning of Malchus? The Melech Shmoi Nikro Aleihem. That the whole meaning of Melech is that his name is called on the kingdom. Melech Shmoi Nikro Aleihem. In other words, Berega, that you mention the concept of Malchus, you move into the concept of name. And that's what we say in Adon Olam every morning. We say Adon Olam, Asher Mola B'terem Kol Me'ei La'it Naso B'chef Tzeikel Azai Melech Shmoi Nikro. Once the worlds came about, then he's called a Melech. In other words, and Shmoi Nikro. In other words, how did he bring about all the worlds? He brought the world about because he became a Melech upon them. And what is a Melech? Shmoi. The whole meaning of a Melech is his name is called upon all of the things over which he rules. So what do I earn by saying that the whole thing is only for his name? Like we see by the king, that the king sits in his palace. He doesn't really walk around mixing himself with all of the subjects, and he doesn't walk around mixing himself with everything that happens. He just gives out these decrees. Right? And what do? They say that this is in the name of the Melech, and as soon as everybody is the name of the Melech, they see his seal or was everybody chitters and has a derech for in other words, the king himself personally is not involved, but his name, Be'ika, is what holds the whole place together. And that's the whole meaning of the concept of Malchus. And therefore, he says, immediately you move to the concept of Malchus, you move to the concept of shame. Because it's the shame of the king that has all the power. His personality is withdrawn. He remains hidden from the people. Okay, so once we got to the union of shame, we now develop on that muscle of name. Okay, shame ha'odam, for example. She'ena noger li'atzmus ha'odam. It's not noger to the very etzem of the mensch. Ki im l'zulosei, it's only for the sake of those around him, yikra'uhu bishmoi, that they should call him by name. In other words, that you don't really need a name, you only need a name that others should call him by that name. Meaning that the name is not really to your essence, the name is only for the sake of other people should be able to refer to you. So from that we see that the Shem of the Mensch, by way of Marshall, is not a ger to him. The Shem has got nothing to do with him. It's just an outward appearance of him for the sake of others being able to refer to him. So now the emphasis is that it's mavur in certain places and so that the name is a little bit more significant than that. Because sometimes Shem has got a very important connection with the inner part of a mensch. We see that if he faints or something like that, and you call him by his name, it can stir him. In other words, that the name does have a certain reference to the pneumias of the Adam, and sometimes in a very important way. It's got certain inyonim. But that's two different levels in the idea of shame. There's an inyan of shame, how that's connected with inyonim pnimiyim, what we call hamshachas hachayus, b'toich haguf. And then there's the inyan of shem, how it is begolui. Begolui, we can imagine somebody living and nobody ever calling him by name, and he would still be able to live, and he would be l'choyer. He would eat, drink, and be merry with the whole arichas, and nothing would really be lacking if he never had a name. What Zayd does, I mean, in that regard, we're talking about the inyan for name. We're not going into it's more considers two different levels to get to name. Sometimes we talk about a name being very get to the inner pnimis of the Adam, one mamish kol atzmusu pnimios, but also pointing to certain inyanim pnimium b'teicha Adam. And then sometimes we take the inyan from shame as it is b'poyal. The way it functions in action is that you don't really need your name, as it is b'golu. You only need the name for the other people. What you might need your name, and the ois is the name, and the pnimius, and nefesh is another. Let's kill another field of discussion. Therefore, ein lahachshoish kushia mizeh. I said, the whole inyan of the name is only shikru eisa b'shmoi. Samech k'moi kein b'chinas malches or melech. Yeah, the whole concept of kingship, that's the way the Eibishter brings the world into being. Imi yoish nas or mokir lo ilamas. Even though the Spheres HaMalchus is mamish, that's the mokir of all the elements, through the inyan of Malchus, the Eibishter brings the elements about. He b'chinas ha'ora levad she'eino nogea klal. The inyan of Malchus is only a shame, and therefore it's only a ha'ora levad. There is no negia whatsoever, just like we pointed out, that the chitonius of the Shem, let's put it that way, the chitonius of your name doesn't really affect you. It's only a ha'ora of you bilvad, in order to be ikah, cause interrelations with other inyonim chutz le'atzmocha. So kaviyochel, that's the same thing. The whole spirit of Moses is in order to create a yachas that the kilu will be a separate entity apart from the Eibishter. And if he has a name, that they should be able to call him by that name, but it doesn't really affect anything, has no negia to his panemius. The difference is that your name doesn't create you. Up there, the whole inyan of the Eibishter's name, that's the way that he brought the whole inyan about. So even though it's only a dova she'eino nogea klal, but it's what brought everything out. Being out, because we're saying that Spheres HaMalchus is the mokir of all of the elements. So on the one hand we have it being the mokir of all the elements, on the other hand it's only a shame, therefore it's eino nogea liatzmusei. So that's how we've done it. How can the Eibishter create and yet nonetheless not be involved? Because he brought it all about only through a level of shem. So now the truth is that even that he didn't really involve. OPMS Kasiv ki nizgov shmoile levada. So here I don't even want to be audacious enough to hope that anybody would remember what that is. That's written also in the davening. Say that every day. Ki nizgov shmoile levada.
It's in Pesukei Zimra.
Very nice in the Pesukei Zimra. It's in one of the Mizmorim right at the end of the Tefillin that we bring in Pesukei Zimra. We say Yahalu Hashem Hashem. You must praise the name of the Eibishter, the name of the Eibishter. Ki, why should you praise it? Ki nizgov shmoi levadoi. Because his name is elevated, nizgov. Now the word nizgov means like in a huge fortress, like a huge encampment beyond altogether everything. And therefore we say The Eibush is a Mizgov Ladoch. Also in Tilim, we say that the Eibush is like a fortress of power for the poor man, for the helpless man. Mizgov Ladoch. That's a Mizgov with a mem. Here it's Nizgov, meaning from a verb, meaning elevated and higher. It's from the root word Govoya. Gov, Gimel, Vase is a root word for the word Govoya, for high. Ki Nizgov Shmoyle Levadoi, that the Eibishter's name is so elevated that it's kilo on its own, meaning that even Gabi, that level of his name, everything is completely and utterly Batel, meaning that not only just the name brings everything about, but since it's only his name, then everything is Mamela Batel. No, he said even Gabi's name, everything is Batel. And that's what he says, that's the emes is, that even Shmoi is Nizgov in a way of Levada. So we hope that everybody will at least be Mason late. That the next time he davens Beis Hashem in the morning, the Pesukei of Zimra, instead of Chas v'Sholem v'Chas v'Chodila, complaining, that the davening is too slow, and showing all sorts of irritations and praying a kop and that he will sit for a moment and think, what does it mean? Ki nizgov shmei levada. That the Eivish's name is completely and utterly beyond and elevated, even his name. Just imagine, if his name is also elevated, then how much he is elevated, and B'tachlis Harimim is completely and utterly beyond the whole creation. So for said the Rebbe, that's a new Chiddush now. The Gam B'china Shmoi who Nizgov Levada, that even Shmoi is Nizgov Levada. Meaning that we just keep getting him being more and more withdrawn from the whole creation. We're going through these different levels. So the Rebbe said that if Shmoi is Einu Nogea Klal Liatzmusei, albeit it's also Nizgov, then how do we get to the creation? What is the level in the creation? But that will be absolutely of no significance whatever. So he says, Vayishal v'shor ilamas, the actual bringing about of the world, al zeh oma, it's in that we say, al kol shevach ma say your de'echo. But you guys are getting a good, how do you call it, helping of your davening. I once again, I hesitate to be audacious enough to ask, where does that occur in the day? Huh?
I think it's all Pesukei de Zimra. Pesukei de Zimra?
No, not in Pesukei de Zimra, my Shema.
It's in Shema, before Shema.
It's very nice. In the bracha is before Kriyat Shema. In the bircha is Kriyat Shema. At the end of the first passage, we say over there, we say that Tis Borei Hashem Elokeinu b'shamayim mima'al v'oretz mitochas. They should be blessed and laudated, in the heavens above and heaven. Al kol shevach ma'asei yodecha. All the unbelievable praise of literally the work of your hands. Here's a new idea that we call the whole creation in Birchas Kriyat Shema. We call it ma'asei yodecha. We call the whole coming into being of all the world. We call it the work of his hands. So we're going even lower down. We're going to, instead of Shmoi, we said, no, Shmoi, forget Nizgov, Shmoi Levada. But that reminds me of a very special little inyan that once happened. I once used to teach in a kollel in Bnei Brak. We had a kollel, myself and another young man, we ran a kollel for a number of years for people outside Lubavitch who wanted to learn Siddur. There was a dayan, a big dayan from one of the. He was a Chassid Vishnit. He was a big macher in. He was then he was quite a macher in visions, and he used to come and sit in the class, and he used to sit with the Ingelaid and listen like everybody. He a very humble person, a very learned person, and he's descended from the mishpacha of the Arizal. From the Marshal, and the Marshal was a grand uncle of the Arizal. So Al Chaponim, his name's Luria. That's the same mishpacha. So anyway, he used to sit and just listen. Every now and then I used to say, listen, I used to feel, he would just sit and listen and absorb everything. So then he became very busy and he left the crew and I didn't see him anymore. And one day I saw him at a bris. I went to some place near what do you call it, Chicken Vision, and he came. He was at the bris and he got a cover. He's quite a Makubatik, a man student. So he came over to me after the bris. He shook my hand. He said, he said, Rav Shneur Zalman, he said to me, he said, I'm sorry I can't come anymore to the shooting, to the koil. So I really miss it. He said, but you should realize, he said, they don't quite quick in visions. He said, but he said, every day, by Nizgov Shmoy Levade, said, I remember, I run through my mind all the cities I learned in the koil, Nizgov Shmoy Levade, the whole world is over here. And Hashem Gur is Nizgov. The whole world is garnished. He said, every day when I say those words in Downey, I remember the whole, I mean, just imagine the feeling of, at least having achieved something that I had, at that moment. That's one Indian. Now you've got another Indian, right? They're all sort of slightly varied in their places in the davening. Well, this is right in the middle of the first bracha. Of the Birchus Kriyat Shema, we say that the world is really only the work of the Eibishter's hand. Al kol shevach ma'aseyo dercha shehu b'chinas ma'aseyo dercha levod. Shezehu ha'orech chitzonius yoser gam mibchinas shem. He said that's a much more outer ha'orech, belonging to the world of chitzonius, even more than name, even more than shame. Because a man can do things with his hands and then later, it just has no reference to him whatsoever. And even when he's doing it, he can really be living somewhere else. He doesn't involve all of himself in Maisa. In other words, that even if he's doing a Maisa which he has to think about, but it doesn't pull the whole of the essence of the bench into Maisa. So therefore he says, how do I see that Maisa is a ha'ora yesher chitonius than what shame is? He says, Dehine shame ha'odam hagam she'enu nogeya. To point out, has no real significance, legabi dimension, legabi his essence, mikol mokem yesh lo shaychus. Nonetheless, negia, mamish, how do you call it, affecting his essence, it doesn't. But it's got a certain, how do you call it, applicability, a certain shaykhut, it does have to his essence. Shaharei nifne lekoiro bishmoi. We see that when you call him by his name, even if he's preoccupied with something else, then all of a sudden he'll turn. Nifne means that he reacts and turns immediately to somebody who calls him by his name. So we see that a man can be in the middle of some preoccupation, and all of a sudden somebody says, "Hey, play and call him by his name." And all of a sudden he looks up and says, "Yo, what are you guys? Who's calling me?" In other words, he feels that the name can, as it were, what you might call, pull him out of even a deep panemius involvement with Dinyanim. And like we said, even to the point of somebody's fainted, even the calling of his name can help to wake him up. Well, for that we see that the name, despite the fact that it's only a Dover Chitani, so here we see that the Rebbe is moving back slightly into another in that we mentioned. The name does have other inyonim to it as well. It ever said the Rebbe, even though, from our point of view, name is a Dover Chitani, but he said it does have a certain shaychus, a certain relativity to the panemius of the mensch, because we see that when you're called by your name, then you all of a sudden show a tremendous turning towards that calling of your the calling of your name. So therefore it's a sign that it does have a certain relativity to a more panemiustic madrega. Avol asio ma'aser b'poyo ein lo shaychus klal. It's not the klal shaychus שהרי אינו נמשך האודום אחר מעשה ידו. A mensch is not drawn after the works of his hand. So also that needs to be understood. What it means, a mensch is not drawn after the works of his hand. I mean, l'chayra, yeah, he does feel a certain, if he did, a good work of his hands, then yeah, he might feel a certain connection with that. He might feel a certain pride. If somebody praises it, he might gain somewhat of a uplift from that praise or from some connection with what he did. For example, I'll give you an example. I happen to notice that this room is very clean at the moment. And it's looking very tidy and decent. And it's much pure. It's much pure. You can feel it. You can feel that the room is different, and that's a Torah Teiv. The person who did it, you can't say that he just completely and utterly has no yachas to that whatsoever. The fact that that was achieved in such a good way, well, that does have some connection. But what we're saying is that the mensch b'chol atzmusei is not nimshach. In other words, that wherever he's ma'aseh yadayim have to be, they don't draw him. He's going to come running after it. Whatever it is, if he happens to be there, if somebody happens to praise it, then he'll be pleased. Or if it's not the case, when he goes back to the door, he must come running because he's ma'aseh yadayim are calling him, or they are in every way affecting him. Ma'aseh in a name, if they call your name, let's say they're a loudspeaker, they could get your name over there, you would come running. But Ma'aseh Yodayim doesn't have quite that effect. But once again, we know that there is a certain, what you might call, like all things in Chassidus, there are two sides to the coin. There's a certain connection between a mensch and what he does with his hands. Dahainu, he feels like we say, a certain pride, a certain this, a certain that, but he's not nimshach acharav. It's only if he happens to be there, then he'll show a certain yachas and a certain nachas ruach. Well, it doesn't draw him wherever it is. It doesn't destroy him that he should come there. Because he and his ma'aseh yadayim are separate inyan. You know the famous story. You're all familiar with the famous story what occurred with the Mezritch Magid. The Mezritch Magid was once in a room, and there was a model there, a beautiful, how do you call it, sailing ship or some sort of model that had been made by an Amayid. So the Mezritch Magid looked at it and he said, well, it's a good model. He said, particularly if you bear in mind that the guy who made it only had one eye. We don't know who made it. We don't know who the guy is. This is where he is. So the Rebbe said, the Mezritch Magid, you don't have to worry. He can be able wherever he is, but I can see in what he did, I can see in his work that he's only got one eye. In other words, that a person does put into the ma'aseh yadayim somewhat of what he really is being eminent. And therefore the Magid was able to notice, at least physically, what sort of a person he was, and probably also, to a certain extent, spiritually. So, by the way, you guys know that the Rebbe Marash also made a model of a sailing ship, right? Since in the mountains. Yeah, the Rebbe Marash, and it was in the hands of the Rebbeim until the whole business happened with the Bolsheviks and everything in Russia, and it got lost. It was just beautiful, they say it's 2.5 little a big sails with all these masts and with these beautiful sails. And all of us, that's happening. The Rebbe Marash made it with his hands. Kachem Sipsing. The Rebbeim told the story. There is a certain relationship between a mensch and ma'aseh yadayim. Everything in this world is a relationship between a mensch and whatever he has a shaykhs to, and yesh kesher, yesh yachas. What we mean to say is here that you're not drawn after it. Standing in one place and you're in another place. You don't come running. It's just because that's there. You're drawn after it. If you happen to be there, somebody praises it. Have a nachas ruach, and then we say, "Oh yeah, I did it. I did it. I put some of my being into it. How much is a shayla, but put some of my being into it." By a name, if you hear your name, even if somebody calls you and you don't hear it, but people say, wait a minute, your name was called. He said, oh, my name was called. Yeah, you feel an immediate compulsion to run in that direction. I seen, she made a picture or a model, you swept out the room, and then you're not drawn. If you're in the door, you come running, you swept out the room, or okay, each of it. And we see from that despite any form of his pilus that might be there, and can be there in the Indian of Maisi or Dayim, nonetheless a mention of drawn after, because it's only a Indian Chitani Legabi, his essence. That was it, the Rebbe. The Indian van een Adam Nimshach. Achamase. Achamase. Vahainu. Shehi b'chinas ha'orech chitanius legamrei. This is a complete ha'orech chitanius. Bashing in the name is not legamrei chitanius. It is also chitanius, but not completely chitanius, like we saw. Alidea is born in a zois. Alidea what which is misbeinen. That really the Eibishter is exactly the same prior to the Bria Leachrea Bria, compared to how he was prior to my Bria. That the whole Bria, it doesn't really have any real Machias. That it's there, but it's not really there as far as the Eibish is concerned. Yeah, it doesn't have any existence. It's just completely and utterly of no relation, so that he can say he's there after it, just like he was there before on his own. Yeah, Mama said the Rebbe, Ali days born the Hoya Chodik Lia is between Kiloi and Vichuka Elov Yis Bara. And I say, if a man was reflect in that, then he should be in a state of absolute longing and kilayon. What the word kilayon means, expiry, or how do you call it? Going out. How do you call it? We don't know anymore what it means, kilayon. You know what they want to say. But they held by kilayon. And the Rebbe brings it down in one of the Bossi Laganis in Toshilam Beis. The Rebbe Melech Moshe bring this up. It's brought in for him, the Baal Shem Tov. On certain occasions, when he went to Daven, he used to say goodbye to his family. He flicked farewell from the Mishpacha, because he didn't know if he's going to come back. He just go up. As for Dogen Klois HaNefesh, he just go out. No, Kacha Hoya. That's it, the Rebbe brings to us. And they say about other great Talmidei Amagid, and also Sipuri Miyainte, it's not just Dr. Bosset. It's given of other really great peoples, that when they went to Daven, they said goodbye. They just said, you know, if they're coming back. Oh, gosh, what are you? Just imagine where we're just dragging around here in this whole mess of it over there. Oh, they used to know these guys. He should be in a state of kiloy. If you hear these in Yonim and you understand them, but she does, then you should just go out. The whole world doesn't, it's not really there, it's not really worth it. It doesn't really change anything. The Eivish still says, Nizgov Shmoyle, even Shmoy is Nizgov Levat. It says, V'chuka Elov is Bora. That you should want to go only to him. In other words, why should you chase after all this insignificant, non-existing nonsense? Just go for him. Elov is Bora. Liyesh b'bchinas v'im choloicha fachti. That you should be in a matter that anything which is only with you, im cho, loicha fachti, I didn't want at all. Now, this is the famous, here we touch on the famous story with the Alter Rebbe, the famous man, which brought down in Derek Tzetzah, somewhat near the end of the famous big long Maimah with the Shorosh Mitzvah Tefillah. It's the longest Maimah Sefer Torah Mitzvah Sechon. And dort the Rebbe that Samech Vav brings, the Alter Rebbe used to say in his Dveikas, Shemanu. You know that the Alter Rebbe, they used to have, where the Alter Rebbe down, they had to put cushions all around the wall, and had these sort of paddings all around the wall, because every now and then the Alter Rebbe would bash his head against the wall during davening. Well, and once he damaged his forehead on the wall, quite nasty, he got a nasty bruise and a cut on his forehead. What he wants to do is, maybe it was Shabbos Quentin, but they built a whole sort of cushion thing all around with else, because every now and then he would just hack his head in the head. So anyway, the Samech Vav brings over there that they heard him say once that the Gvulnishtain Gan Eden and the Gvulnishtain Elam Habo. Gan Eden is at the Elam Habo Leisato. Elam Habo means the whole Elam Habo. It was tight. The whole Elam Asafta Moshe will come Adla nature. And the Alter Rebbe doesn't want that either. He will man nicht as Dicha. Alleen, the Alter Rebbe said he wants only the Eibus to himself. You would have thought that somebody would have rolled off the table or something. The Alter Rebbe didn't want, not Canaan, didn't want Elam Haba. You know what Elam Haba is? That's what the majority of Eden were saying. That's what they're hoping for. They're hoping for Elam Haba. Elam Haba said he wants Menish V'Dicha, and he wants the Eibus to Mamish Biatch Musay. Well, I certainly can't be accused of not having tried to get a little bit of his pilots into you guys. So anyway, how did it work with this pasuk? Ve'im chalei chafatzti, because it's written in Tehillim, in Kapitel Ayin Gimel, the Alter Rebbe, the pasuk, David HaMelech says, Mi li b'shomayim, who do I have in all the heavens? All the heavens, including Gan Eden and all those things. I don't have anybody. Mi li, I don't have anybody there. Ve'im cha, and anything which is even higher than that and bigger than that, but it's only im cha. It's only with you. It's not you. It's im cha. Im cha meaning botel v'tofel lecha. It could be botel v'tofel. The Rebbe ranked a Mishnah, Sador Mishnah. In I think it's a Mishnah in Bomis, and it states to it that somebody is Yerush, somebody gets all the Yerusha im, and he's Yerush im Yorshei Habal, meaning that the Yorshei Habal, the Yorshim of the husband, are tough him because he's the son. He gets the Baal might get a little bit of getting how it runs there in the Mishnah. Im, so the word im means tofel, batel, yachadim, but like tofel too. So that's how the Alter Rebbe ties. Mi li b'shomayim, who do I have in there? Heavens, ve'im cho, anything which is just batel to you, and it's only just im cho, it's not you, and im cho implying that it's batel completely to you. Lo chofatzti, I don't have any desire for that. You come to us, you don't have a desire for anything. If you don't have desire, you wiped out everything. What do you have a desire for? Oh, he said, only for you, so.
If you don't have a desire for Hashem, you have no desire for anything?
If
you don't have a desire for Hashem, you have no desire for anything?
No, chas v'sholem, not for Hashem. We're saying that's verkehrt. That's what I'm saying. He has a desire only for Hashem. Not for anything which is only with him or batil to him or revelations of him.
Sure.
He wants only him. So that's what he says. Anything which is only im cho, it's not you. Loicha fatzti, I didn't want it. And the word chayfetz means rotzen pnimi kiyador. When you say chayfetz in Lashon Kodesh, that means your inner will, your afila b'chinas kiim cho makeir chagir. So I said, wait a minute. In Imcha it tells the different madrigas, and there's a inim which is Nilmas in another pasuk in Tehillim, Ki Imcha Mekeir Chaim, because with you is the makir of all the life. So that could mean the original makir of the Elam Sadayah, even higher than the Tzimtzum in the Inif and Malchus Te'ain. Save, Mamishan, who knows, what's why madriga go tremendously high. The makir of all the Chaim, of all the life, of all the Elam is, but since it's only Imcha, Me'acha Shehu Rach Imcha, so he taises, Imcha Tofog U Botelecha. Yeah, then I don't want it. It's not for me. Ki, why am I like that? Why is it I don't want that? Mi li b'shomayim, who is there for me in anything which is only heavenly? Anything which is only the word heavens. Yeah, Gan Eden ho Elyon. In other words, Gan Eden or Elyon is going very high. Gan Eden or Elyon, very, very high madriga. Shelo yakpoitz b'shum dovo. That the Alter Rebbe recommends that you shouldn't want anything whatsoever. Lo began Eden atachtein v'ho Elyon. Not in Gan Eden atachtein, and not in Gan Eden ho Elyon v'lo boilam habor. Not even in the world to come. Well, that means after Moshiach and after Tchias HaMeitzah. Kafal. Kiim, he says. Only ein seif atzmus yoma. Only the Eibush in his very essence. Only he himself. V'hainel fisher kulam heim rach mi'ha'ora b'yalma. It's all just a ha'ora bilva. How do you call it? It's all just. It's just impossible to describe how much it's of no reference to. Im rach mi'ha'ora b'yalma. Until he I've never altered in any way, I haven't changed in any way from the whole coming into being of all these levels and all these madrigas, even Elam Abor. There's nothing. Ve'ila zoish be'ezi yakpoit. So the Rebbe said, so make yourself your own cheshbon, ila zoish, meaning if that's the case, be'ezi yakpoit, what should you really? Yeah, what should you want? Yeah, im beha'ora hanifreshes, or should you want a separating off ha'ora? Because it's ha'ora. Now here's a new word, nifreshes. In other words, it's not only ha'ora, but it goes down through all sorts of separation, gradations. Nifreshes means from the word nifrosh. What nifrosh means to separate. So it's not only a ha'ora, but it keeps getting further away as it goes down. So he said, yeah, be'ezi apoit, im ba'hora nifreshes, oi bi'atzmusoi. Or in the very essence of Hashem, Ikar u'mokeh hakul. What he is the principality, and he is the mokeh of everything. He's the mokeh even of the Imkum Chaim, and he's the mokeh of the Elam Abor, and he's the mokeh of everything. Is what should you want? So the Rebbe puts it here. No, Mata Madif. What would you prefer? Yeah. Either be'ezi yapis in ba'ara nefreshes, oi bi'atzmus, oi bi'atzmus, ika, o mokeh ha'akru. Al zeh, Anovi mitamer, on that the Novi is expressing his amazement. Eich lo ichilisim ya bonines danieshem loishon nisi. How is it you guys didn't just go out altogether? How come you just didn't have place on nefesh completely and utterly from the whole union of Yisbonas Aniyah Fire Loishon nisi? And so we were just sitting very balabati. But that's what you should be holding by. You should be holding by absolute place on him. So he said, what is the reason we weren't going to that right now? We'll deal with it, Be'ez Hashem, in coming in future developments. But we're holding by the Shaila. Why aren't you in a state of Klosa? Hey, good question. It's a shame. If your mommy, I'll tell you a famous story about the Baditchu. You come here about the Baditchu. We're going to get